Doc, hirap po akong matulog. I have insomnia. Patulong po. So ito, very common question ito. Mapa-low carb lifestyle man or hindi, insomnia is very real. It affects a lot of people, especially ngayong modern day na po, kasi napakaraming mga stimulation. Napakaraming stimulus that's present all around. Ito po si Dr. Iris, Filipino-Canadian medical doctor, nakabase dito sa Vancouver, Canada. Tumutulong sa mga kababayan natin worldwide to optimize wellness using natural means. So, holistic wellness po sa pamamagitan ng low carb and fasting lifestyle and also stress reduction, also regular movement. So, insomnia, very common itong concern ng mga kababayan natin. Anong pwedeng gawin? So, there are a few things that are included in what we call sleep hygiene. So, ito po yung strategies para matulungan tayo to regulate our sleep. So, number one, establish a routine schedule. So as much as this sounds rigid, the reality is our body thrives on routine, especially pagdating po sa tulog. The more that you have a reliable time kung kailan kayo ay matutulog and it's constant most of the time, then mas madali para sa ating katawan, sa ating brain mag-shutdown at ma-regulate yung ating sleep. So even if you are a shift worker, let's say, you have shifts when you're working days and then you have shifts when you're working nights, it's important to establish yung routine ninyo para doon sa mga days na day worker kayo and doon sa mga days na night shift worker kayo. Doon sa wala namang mga shifts, you're lucky. So it's easier to establish yung inyong sleep time na constant and just follow it and allow your body to settle into the routine. Number two, no electronic stimulation. At least an hour before bed. So, electronic stimulation, iba't ibang pamamaraan. It can be TV, it can be, pinakauso ngayon is yung ating mga devices po, handheld devices, yung ating mga computers. So, these things emit yung blue light. So, this is quite detrimental sa regulation ng melatonin. It affects melatonin. Ito yung natural natin na hormone na nakakatulong para tayo ay makatulog ng maayos, and so the blue light affects yung melatonin and mahihirapan talaga tayo matulog if we get overstimulated with the blue light. But also din yung mga nakikita kasi natin, napapanood natin, nababasa natin sa ating, pag-scroll, nasa-stimulate tayo. So best to avoid any form of stimulation close to bedtime, especially itong mga emitting blue light na mga devices na ito. So at least an hour before bed. Next one, caffeine. So, iba't ibang tao, iba't ibang pangangatawan, iba't ibang physiology. So, anywhere from 3 to 7 hours before bedtime, we have to avoid caffeine. In some people, it can be highly stimulating and makaka-contribute sa hirap ng pagtulog. So, best to avoid this in that 3 to 7 hour window before bedtime. Number 4, kailangan pong hindi tayo kakain very close to bedtime. So, kailangan meron tayong pagitan around 4 hours before bedtime yung ating last meal. Kasi when we eat too close to the bedtime, it will impact yung ating metabolism and then it impacts yung sleep natin. Next, another form of stimulation, exercise. So, avoid exercising at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. The reasoning behind this is increased production ng mga hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. And ang effects ng mga hormones na ito is to increase heart rate. It puts you in a fight or flight mode. So really hyper-alert mode. And so best to avoid yung pag-increase nito mga hormones na ito through exercise. In some cases, sa mga nagta-transition, yung mga nagfa-fasting natin na community members, you will find that there can be a period na magkakaroon kayo ng insomnia kasi ganun din, in fasting, there occurs a time na tumataas yung amounts ng norepinephrine and epinephrine. So sa mga ibang community members natin, we tell them about the sleep hygiene to minimize yung stimulation to counteract nga itong natural effect na ito. In some cases, we advise na mag-melatonin sila para lang matulungan yung onset ng sleep. So, melatonin up to around 3 milligrams is a good starting place. Don't try to go too high so as not to be dependent din dito sa exogenous melatonin kasi meron naman tayong internal melatonin. And this adjustment is temporary lang naman yung hirap matulog dahil sa pagfa-fasting natin. Another thing about exercise is exercising regularly can help regulate your sleep. So yung mga taong may routine ng exercise, they will notice that they will sleep better compared sa ibang tao. So although we don't advocate for exercising too close to the bedtime, if you have a routine na exercise, regular movement at a different time in the day, then this can help yung pag-regulate po ng sleep ninyo. Number 7, it has something to do with senses. So meron tayong 5 senses po, yung ating mata, pandinig, yung ating pangamoy, yung ating sensation of touch, and then yung ating taste. So you have to get those 5 senses in a relaxed state. So create an environment that's conducive for sleeping regarding the 5 senses. So number 1, make sure na yung inyong tutulugan is not so hot. Kailangan kasi ang katawan cools down so that it's more optimal for sleeping. So make sure that your environment is a bit cool-ish. So medyo cool ang temperature ng room. And then when it comes to the eye, so visual, make sure that there's not much light. So darker po, kasi the effect ni melatonin, yung effect ng light sa melatonin. So cool and dark na room. And then of course, less stimulation in terms of pang-amoy. So, syempre, pleasant smell. Hindi maganda yung meron tayong mga unpleasant smell doon sa room, mahihirapan tayong matulog. And then also, it's important to not eat, obviously, doon sa bedroom natin. So, don't stimulate your taste buds just before bed. As we've mentioned, hindi ka dapat kumakain close to the bedtime. And finally, yung pandinig natin, it has to be a quiet environment. So, all the 5 senses. And again, kailangan, as we've said, usually naririnig ninyo itong kasabihan na ito that the bedroom should only really be for sleeping and intimacy. So, don't do other things in the bedroom too kasi yun nga, pumapasok na naman yung stimulation ng senses natin. So, don't put a TV in your bedroom, don't watch TV there, don't read in bed kasi you are associating one other action sa bed, which is reading, yung bed is simply dapat talaga for sleeping and intimacy. So try to avoid itong mga stimuli that will affect our senses during our bedtime. Number 8, avoid napping for more than 30 minutes, especially in the afternoons, yung malapit na po sa ating bedtime. So usually, anything past like 2 p.m., try to avoid napping kasi it will alter yung ating sleep schedule. Although power naps can be powerful, kailangan lang talaga wag siya masyadong malapit sa bedtime and wag masyadong mahaba. Number 9, very important, isa pang bagay na nakaka-stimulate sa atin, of course, mood, mga worrisome thoughts. So we have to have a strategy for reducing stress, a strategy for reducing yung mga racing thoughts natin. So a strategy for controlling, of course, anxiety and depression. It's always good to look at how you can regulate itong mga emotions na ito because they can affect yung ating sleep. So, practice meditation, mindful movement, address yung mga mood disorders to help you sleep easier. And then finally, practice the 20-minute rule. Merong rule na if in 20 minutes you're unable to sleep, you must get out of bed. You should never go to bed na hindi kayo tired, hindi kayo ready mag-sleep kasi then again, you are teaching the brain to associate the bed with tossing and turning. So, nagkakaroon ng negative association. So, the moment you realize na 20 minutes na, hindi pa rin kayo makatulog, then just get out of bed, do calming activity, do something else na hindi masyadong stimulating but helps you to calm down. Yun nga, mga meditation, mga reflective activities, listening to calming music. And then, when you are feeling sleepy, that's the time you go back to bed. So very, very important po ang sleep. Obviously, this is part of holistic wellness. Many times, yung mga community members natin who are trying, for example, to lose weight, reverse medical conditions, they may feel that they're doing everything right, pero minsan hindi pa rin ma-meet yung goals. And having poor sleep, poor quality sleep, is one of the biggest culprits actually. Kasi nga, effect nito sa cortisol. And as you know, cortisol is the stress hormone over the long term. This can impact other hormones like insulin, of course, right? So then it impacts our metabolism, it impacts our mood, it impacts our immune system. Napakarami pong effect nito sa body natin. Sleep is a time for regeneration. So good quality sleep of 7 to 9 hours every night will really help us sa pag-repair ng ating katawan. It's a healing balm sa atin pong katawan This is the time that allows for our body to regenerate and heal itself. So very, very important po ang sleep. Obviously, we want to help you sleep as naturally as possible. We really don't want to prescribe medications kasi medications will have side effects over the long term. They can affect your memory, they can affect your cognitive function, and hindi namin ina-encourage talaga ito. Certain times, we give out medication doon sa transition period, but really we advocate for the more natural way, which is establishing itong sleep hygiene, following it, and over time, you will see na if you really commit to following the sleep hygiene, it should work. So, yan po ang importanteng malaman dito. There is a natural way to regulate your sleep. Kung kailangan po ng extra gabay sa holistic wellness, please join our various communities. Kung kailangan ng mga resources and free trainings, especially for mental health, stress reduction, anger management, meron din tayo niyan. Just check out my webpage, levelupwithdriris.com. Mga libre po ang mga trainings dyan. Pipili lang tayo. As always, I am wishing you holistic wellness. Level up po tayo lagi. Stay healthy and stay low carb. Stay toxic stress-free.